Now if we don't have an input file to open, we can create a new file. And this comes up, this box comes up. You pretty much ignore how many batches. These batches are, if you've read the pre-reading, it's just how many packets, if you like, of data that can be stored. We won't worry about extended directory, but we want to tell it where the destination file is. So in this case I can make it the same as the source. So our destination file and input file are going to be the same. And we can also browse if we want to call it, find a particular file. In this case we're just going to call it demo-data.mtd, but because that one already exists, I'm going to put a 1 or make it a 2 on the end of there and go OK. So it's created this file now, demo-data2, and you can see it's got nothing, no batches in it, there's no kilobytes, no data file there, and you see it at the top here. So when now I go to open an input file, if I go back to my C drive where I stored it on my directory under Tideda training, I've got my original one and the new one I've created with nothing in it. So now we can jump between them, we can open one file, use one as an output, one as an input. That's what we'll do in the next training. Okay, if we start again now with our file that we've created, or our existing file. So we're going to open our file again, search for it under computers, local, my directory, and I've put it under, there you are, Tideda training material, demo data. So it's come up with our, you can resize the window here. So one important thing to remember is with these input and output files, they need to be set. So we have our open input file, which is this one here in this case. So we can see it at the top, demo data, but we also need to set a destination folder. So by doing this, we're telling it where we want data to go. So in this case, I've already set it up as that new file I've created, data2. So if I do any editing, say on the original, this original one, which is out with all our sites in it, if I do any editing here, I probably don't want to leave the edited data back on this file. We want it to go to a new file. Hence we go to the one that we've created, the data2, so it'll end up in this file here. So it's very important to set the input and output files before we do any work. So the best idea is to, after you've set up your input file, you go to your destination file here, and you see it could be any file at all, and it's dangerous because the data that you're editing could go to a file and you can't find the data, you don't know where it's gone. So by making it the same as source, at least you know it's the same, it's going to go to the same place. But it may be, if you're working on an archive like this, you don't want the data to go there. So you want to then browse for our one we created, which is an empty file at the moment, but a safe place to put it. So now we want it to go to data2. So we've set our destination file as being separate to this input file. So it's very important to set your input files and destination files before you do any work. So keep that in mind. So you can see from our list here a scan of all the data that we have, listed here nicely with the site name, but it also shows us what data or batches are associated with. So let's look at this first one, the deep stream at return flow. This is a site number here. Here are the dates and times, start times, finish times. And it also has the kinds, which we talked about earlier, and you can refer to, but it's got rating data in there, instantaneous, which is our stage record, and gauging data from flows that's been recorded or measured in the field. So you can see all these sites have this, except for this one here only has instantaneous because it's a lake site. It's not recording, there's no flow recorded there or gauging. So all these other sites have all these three, which is the most common, and the only other one you would see would be rainfall. So if we find a site with rainfall, here we go, here's the rainfall site here, the dune rain gauge. It has incremental, so the kind's incremental here. Again, showing us the date and time, site number as before. So all this is specified here in our scan of the data. So as well as that, if we go through the menus, remember all these menus here along the top are described in the pre-reading, to some extent, but obviously fully in the manual too, if you want to go to the manual, the reference manual here, to explain it in more detail. But the pre-reading would have given you a little bit of understanding of the different menus. So here, obviously under File, which is the most common with all Windows operations, we've got our initial starting things that we need to sort out, like our opening, which file we're going to use, creating new files, sorting out which our destination where we're going to copy things to, our attributes, some things we don't need to know at this point, our preferences, which we've already sorted and looked at, where to print in our last files, and we've got editing options when we go into certain applications that we're running here. We might want to copy text, copy graph, and we can edit our attributes here. This is just the setup of what we're seeing on the screen, so probably leaving it as defaults best. There are options here. Our data, we can, the most common time you're coming here is to select our data using this box here to select what we want to use. We may want to use Import Wizard for bringing in a CSV file. That will cover that in a separate session. And we can also export data as well, back out of Tideda to a CSV or other formats. The graph options we looked at, graphing over time the most commonly, graphing ratings, gaugings. These are other things we can look at a later stage. Tables for listing the data. Again, we're going to look at that in another session. Doing some statistics on it, calendar. We can move data around, transform it, means do changes on it, multiply it, add offsets. We can copy it. We can manage it too. We can get rid of gaps. We can delete parts if we need to. We can manage the batches that we have. We can clean up our data and our lists like we have here using these features. Entry is when we want to enter data into Tideda via different methods. Probably the most common one would maybe a keyboard entry of manually read data or recorded data. Most of the times we'll be using the Import Wizard. Extra, at this stage we won't go into this, but there's some more complicated analysis we can do on the data. And then the comments too. This is the metadata we looked at. We'll look at this again in a separate session. Just how to edit a comment and the sort of formats we use for importing and exporting. And this is just how the windows are set up and displayed. So, as I say, explain better in the pre-reading document and also in the manual. But some of these you'll get to learn as we go along. And same with the buttons in the front here. The plotting ones, these again, the printing ones you'll probably use most of the time. Otherwise, you'll find them via the menus. So that's probably enough for this session, and we'll go on to the next one.